Welcome to episode 2 of VR Basic Bytes, where I help you create VR experiences that are beginner friendly using Unity. So, if you're brand new to this, you are in the right place because we all start there at some point, right? And just a reminder, these recordings are going to be on vrbasicbytes.com as a YouTube playlist. And also, those of you who are watching the recording, hello. And just to quickly show you where we were last week when we did this, um, we brought in um, our basic Oculus project, and then let me share my screen here. There we go. So I have two editions of this project, and all of these show notes and such are on the website there that you see. But we have last week just set up for VR development. We didn't actually make anything, but we did set it up for GitHub desktop to be able to keep a backup going. And I actually have two different versions of it. There's the practice version that I kind of fiddle with during the week and see what I should be doing during the live version like this. And then I had the live version. So the practice version is always going to be a little bit ahead. Um, than the live version. So today we're making Carnival Cans, which if you're on the notes page here and you click on Carnival Cans, it just drops you down to my cheat sheet. And I'm going to be referencing this throughout the time here. And basically, we're going to throw tomatoes to knock cans off of a pirate ship plank. I don't know. It just seemed to make sense at the time. Just kind of sounded fun. So let's get started, shall we? Um, I have both versions open, my practice version as well as the starting version. So we're going to go from here to what you saw in the picture. So I like this setup. I'll be using this one with the inspector on the right there. And this green cube, I found out it's a green cube. Um, thanks to my brother, because I'm colorblind. That's basically the VR area. You think of it as like about a 8 or 10 foot square. That when you play in VR, that's kind of your zone, right? That's around you. And so last time when we played, the only thing I've done to this live version is under the project settings, the XR plugin management. I checkmark the Oculus. And so when I play this now, we basically have the spherical hands that we had last time. So let's basically go through the steps here. Um, we're going to import these Kenny assets from kenny.nl. He's from the Netherlands. Very helpful stuff. And if you just go to 3D and you search food, we're getting the food one. If you search pirate, we're doing the pirate one. And under 2D, I actually got this RPG base because I wanted the water tile because I'm going to use that as my material for the water below the ship. So, and it's raining outside again. Welcome to Ohio. 60 degrees today and snowing in 2 days. And hopefully, if I'm going to turn on the comments. So if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comment box there. Hi, Debbie. On YouTube there. I'm not exactly sure what it looks like comment wise for everybody, but anyways, let's hide that. Okay. The Kenny assets that I downloaded. Let me pull up my two windows here so I can show you what I'm doing. These are the downloads. They come in a zipped files here. And by the way, before I forget, when you turn on Oculus Link, before you're linked up, you'll have your standard toolbar with all your games and that. But once you click on this little area here and turn on Oculus Link, which of course you have to be connected with your USB-C cable. Mine's actually a USB-C to USB-A, and it works just fine, even though because I don't have a USB-C input on my computer. But once you turn on Oculus Link, you'll know you're in it because you'll have this kind of silver toolbar. Once you see this, you're good to go as long as you're also running the Oculus app here. That way, when you hit play in Unity, you'll actually be able to see the VR portions. So I unzipped all of these things. So let's get the things we want. This is inside of my project. There's assets. And I'm going to make a new folder in here for Carnival Cans, even though it really should be called like Pirate Cans, but there's no alliteration then. Out of each one of these 3D downloads, once you unzip them, under models, he provides a lot of different formats. We want FBX. So I'm just going to control A, copy that. And inside of here, I'm going to make a models oops, folder. And I'm going to try to stay organized. This is going to be our food models, right? Yeah. Paste that. Go back to downloads. Here's my pirate kit, models, FBX, control A, copy over to the models folder. We're going to call this just pirate sounds good. And then paste in those. Now, the nice thing about doing it outside of here is it's, to me, a little bit easier to manage the files because once you go back into Unity, you'll notice it immediately recognizes, oh, there's a bunch of new files in there. So it's going to take a second. It's going to import all of those, which is no problem. Couple of things to mention while we're waiting on that to finish importing there. Oh, it's already done. See, look there. If I move this over, there's my Carnival Cans and my models and all that fun stuff. Let's go check out. Oops, there we go. So we have successfully imported. Oh, the RPG tiles. Oh my goodness, almost forgot that. Don't want to forget my tiles. And actually, I only need one tile, number 29, I think. Canny RPG pack, PNG, and I really just need number 29. I'm not going to download or put the rest of them in there. I'm going to make a new folder from materials. And basically, this is just a picture that we're going to wrap around a shape. So think of like if it was a Coke can, you'd have a flat rectangle, and then you'd have a cylinder, and it wraps around that. So that's what our material is going to be. And this is just going to be on a flat surface. But so there's our water tile. Okay, now we're good to go. Now the XR rig. We need to change the hand models because I can't stand the spherical things. You can't tell which way your hands are facing. It just doesn't feel very immersive. So we're going to do that under the XR rig here. If you expand it, it's got a whole bunch of fun stuff. The camera offset basically is your head compared to where the floor is. That's why you have to set the floor when you set up your Oculus. But in here, we have left hand, and we have this XR controller script that's already on here. Now, remember, this starting point is from, and if you look in the notes, there's the download, the starter project, and this is from the Create with VR Unity course. So they give you a whole bunch of great scripts that we're going to be using today, like this one. So at the bottom of this XR controller script is this model prefab. So right now it's a hand sphere. A prefab is basically a prefabricated object. It's kind of like the master copy of something. You'll see this later on when we have multiple cans, multiple tomatoes, that if I edit the master, it edits everything else that is from that prefab, which is pretty awesome. So how do I get my new hands? Well, there's a little target right here we can click on. And I'm going to, it's not going to show me in that one. I have to go in this way. The course library, this is what came with the starter project. Prefabs, let's expand that. VR, hands. And I know this first one is the left hand. So if I click on left, find that field again, there's the sphere. I'm going to drag in this. So I now have a left hand, right hand controller, gets a right hand, boom. Now when we play, we'll actually have hands. Isn't that great? Very nice. Now, in the XR rig, we have to add three things, and it looks kind of complicated. There's a lot of fields, or, little things to drag and drop and that kind of thing. But basically, the locomotion system is so we can move around. Okay. The snap turn provider is when you have your controller here and you can kind of flick this joystick left and right. It's not always easy to turn around. Like I'm at a desk, so it's kind of hard to turn around. So I'll be able to flick this left and right, and it'll turn me in 45-degree increments. That's what that script is for. And the teleportation provider is basically telling it when I teleport to a new area, it tells me move the entire VR rig, the XR rig with it, right? Which is basically you, right? Your camera, your headset, all of that stuff. So we're going to add the locomotion system first, and then the snap turn. So on the XR rig, I'm going to collapse these back up and try and stay a little organized. So we're going to add a locomotion system, and that's a script that comes with the Create with VR. And it says, okay, what XR rig? Well, this one. So just drag and drop that in there. Add component again. If I type in snap, you want the action-based snap turn provider. And you can see the turn amount is 45 degrees. You can play around with that. Um, but this locomotion system, where it says none, and it's looking for a locomotion system, it just so happens to be right here. So we just grab the title of that and drop that in there. And the rest of this stuff is fine. So I'm going to collapse that. And then the last thing, the teleportation provider, which is going to allow us to teleport. So I'm going to type in teleport. There we go. Teleportation provider. So this is going to actually, and you can see these other teleport scripts. These are places we can teleport to, which we're going to use later. But right now we just need to know what to teleport. And the system is going to be the XR rig. So again, dragging in the XR rig in there. So it looks like a whole bunch of complicated stuff, and it's kind of off-putting if you're brand new to this, but that's really the most difficult part, in my opinion, because now we get to actually start building things and bringing in the fun stuff. And I mean, who doesn't want to throw tomatoes at cans and knock them off the plank and all kinds of fun stuff? So next, the rug. Do we need a rug? We need a ship. I don't even know why I don't have a ship in here, but we need a pirate ship. Let's go there first. And that's going to be in here because remember I imported those FBX files. That's a 3D model file. So inside the pirate here, look at all these fun pirate things. I'm going to do this ship light, and I'm just going to drag it right in here. And if I zoom out, it is absolutely huge. Okay. So I know from practice that I'm just going to scale this down to 0.2. Every object has a transform. Which simply means everything has a position, of course, a rotation, and a scale. And if I remember right, 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, something like that. And also, if you see me kind of flying around like this, when you hold the right mouse button in the scene view, you can use WASD. You can even see on the screen, there's a little tiny WASD looking icon. And I can fly in and out, fly around. And if I add shift, I can go even faster. And another fun trick, watch this. If you have an object selected and you just hover anywhere in the scene view and press the F key, it will focus or frame that up. So there it is. Very nice. The water's looking a little small. It's just a 2D plane. So let's make it look a little more big. There we go. That'll work. um, Also, with this pirate ship, you'll notice in the practice version, I got rid of the sails just because when you move around the pirate ship, I wanted to be able to see better. So and notice the box colors here. All the transparent ones are just plain old objects. They're not prefabs. This icon indicates that it's a prefab. Um, so if I were to make, drag in a whole bunch of ships like this, which I'm not going to, and then I change the prefab, they would all change, which is great, except I want to delete the sails off of here. And so we have to unlock it. And in prefab language, that means unpack it. So it's like an Amazon box, like the ones I get on my porch that my dog chews up, like USB cables. She's a golden retriever. She's in here somewhere. She'll probably come visit sometime. So I unpacked it. You see the little icon change now? And now it's going to let me delete these things. I'm just going to control click those three, hit delete. So we have no sails, so the ship's not really going anywhere. And also you'll notice the XR rig is like down in the ship's hold, which is, from what I hear, not a good place to be. So we're going to actually move that up. Let's bring her up here, put it over there. And you see in the game view down here, that's going to be the orientation they start at, which I don't really want to be facing that cargo hold. And so what I like to do is I hover over. I know I need to rotate on the Y. That's the vertical axis that's going to twist. When you hover over the Y, you can actually just scrub that value. It's called, and I know I want it to face this direction ish. And when I get close, I'm like -81. Yep, probably supposed to be -90. So then I type it in, but I always have to just scrub the values until I get close. Now it looks low, but that's because the when you play the game, it'll be your height off of the ground. So I'm sitting down, but still, there we go. And also these giant icons. Yeah, there's a sun, there's a camera, which is your headset's view. I always like to get rid of those. So there's this little drop down by gizmos that you can just slide those completely off because I don't need to see them. Um, all right, we got a pirate ship. Sweet. Um, we're gonna bring a rug in here. I don't know if pirate ships had rugs, but I doubt it. Um, but the reason is we need to have a place for the player to know they should be standing there. Um, it's optional if you want to make the whole ship, like you can walk around the whole ship, which I'll show you how to do that too. But for right now, I want like a little rug, and then there'll be a table in front of it that they can pick the tomatoes off of. So the rug came in the course library. Thank you to Unity. So if we go into prefabs, rugs, and there's a little round rug. Now, it's like way off in space over there, way over there. And one little trick that I've also learned is, again, with that object selected, if you hover over in this window and you do Control Shift F, it looks like it disappeared, but it actually moved to my exact position and orientation. And then I just zero out the rotations. So I zero, tab key zero, and the last one's already. So now I basically have it close to where I want it to be. And now I'm thinking, okay, how do I get it to be basically perfectly on the surface, but not through it? And there's another trick. I can find the bottom of this rug and hold the V key, it will grab a vertex. I think a vertice. I don't know. One of them's plural, one of them's singular, but you can see as I hover around, it's grabbing points. And when I grab that, it's going to snap to different surfaces. And so I want it to snap to the surface of the ship. And now it's perfectly on the surface. I don't have to worry about it being slightly through the surface. There is a slight height to this thing, but not very much. Um, so the rug looks pretty nice right there, right? So we're going to add a teleport area to that, and then I'm going to actually test it so you can see what we're building so far. But um, the teleport area, we'll worry about the ship in a little bit. So with this mat or rug selected, I'm going to add component, and I started typing in teleport already. Remember teleportation area. There it is. I'm going to collapse this other stuff because we don't need it. Real quick explanation of what you're looking at here. The mesh renderer is basically the model itself. If you turn this off, you don't see it. It still has a collider. It still acts like there's something there. You just can't see it because it's not being rendered, right? Which means to, display the graphic. So we're going to, of course, turn that on, but collapse it because we don't need to see it or that. And a couple of things we can do here. The only two fields we really care about are the custom reticle. So when I play it right now, I have a laser type thing, and when I point at something I can teleport to, I can make it so that it's something special, so to speak. So I'm going to click in assets and just type in ret, and there's a whole bunch of them. I'm going to do circular, and you'll see what that looks like in a little bit. And the teleportation provider, if we look here, dragging the XR rig into the teleportation provider field. So here's the provider. Where's my rig? There it is. That goes in there. So it tells it when I basically squeeze the, uh, it's not the pointer finger. It'd be your like middle finger inside trigger, I call it. That's what will allow you to jump to that point. So let's see if we can actually do it. I'm already in link mode. All right, loading Unity. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. And I got to see what you can see. You can't see very much. I'm going to maximize on play so you can see that a little better. Let's play it now. Okay, so I'm on the ship. Look at this lovely pirate ship. Wonderful. And you can see when I point over this, it changes to my custom reticle. And then if I squeeze that index trigger or the inside trigger, it jumps to that point. I can't jump anywhere else because I haven't designated those as teleportation areas. Remember, that's the script we just added onto here, which makes that an area that we can actually teleport to. So we've got a rug. I'm not sure why I forgot ship. I'll add ship later. I don't know why that's not in the notes. So the water, we're actually going to make it look like water using a custom material. And that's, again, basically just a picture that we can then wrap around a surface. Or in this case, it's a big flat surface. So collapse some of this stuff, materials. Here's my tile. I'm going to right click and create material. And I'm going to call this water. And all we really care about right here is the base map, which is like what picture do you want to use? I'm not really sure what it's doing. Um, and if I drag this little water tile that I got from Kenny, the 2D pack, and drop it right in there, I can now use this already. I can just go over here and drop it. But if I zoom way out, you'll see it's kind of like one giant tile. Um, and so we're actually going to set this tiling number a little higher. You can play around with it. I mean, 22 seems to look pretty good. Kind of looks kind of watery, right? And we can even add more tint to it. Um, and I know I'll be in the blues when I have the bee up there. So I can add a little more tint to it. Um, and that way we have a custom water material that looks actually like water. There we go. Got a custom material. Boom. 50 by 50. That was what I originally used, but I kind of like the way I have it now. So now we're going to make the plank. We're going to make a new cube and then scale it to these numbers. I'm going to go to, actually, I'm just going to go into here, 3D object, cube. We'll call this plank. And again, I could do the Control Alt F thing and move it into position. I'm going to manually move it this time. There we go. And we're going to need it. Let's just scale it now while we're here, and then we'll position it. 3.7.1, 3.7.1.8. Yeah, that looks kind of planky. And let's do that trick with the V key because I have it selected here. V key, and then maybe. There it is. Sometimes you have to move it, and then it snaps and shows up. So I don't care where it's at. I just need it to be snapped perfectly to the surface. And now it's actually on there. And to make it look like wood, they have a nice wood material in the course library. So I'm just going to click on that and type wood. And we're just going to borrow that because it looks like wood. Look, you can drop it on the ship, on the cannon, on the rug, but we're going to drop it on the plank. So we've got that. It did come with a box collider. So colliders are or what it acts like when something collides with it. So in other words, it's the shape of the collision area. In this case, it's rectangular, of course. So it's going to be sitting right there as a rectangle. But I also want to make oh, that's why it wasn't moving earlier. I was renaming it. There we go. So there's my plank. I'm actually going to Control D and just duplicate that. We're going to call this table. The sweet table. We're going to add a new material to it. And 0.16, 0.65, 0.65. I'm doing Alt tabs to go between here. 0.5. There's my table. Look at that. Let's move this out just a hair. There we go. Just like that. Depending on how tall you are, you may have to adjust this. But this seems to be a good height for me. So when I stand here, we'll be having the tomatoes on top there to throw. Kind of center that a little bit. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Let's move the rug just a little bit. There we go. So this also, since I duplicated it, of course, has a box collider. If I click on this little adjust the bounding volume, you can see I could make it act as though it's this big. And so when I put a tomato seemingly here, it would actually sit on top of this invisible area because that's what a collider is. That's where it collides with stuff. So I don't want to adjust it, but just so you know, that's how that works. So, whoops, the tomato. Um, I'm going to add a couple of new materials, but we're going to build it right here in the scenes. So let me go back to my food models and I'm looking for not that tomato. Um, we want this one. We're going to throw this in here. I'm not sure what I did with the import, but I don't think I got all the colors or something. I'm not sure. But I'm going to make this like a zero point 0.7 across the scale. And then remember how we made the material and tinted it for the water down here? We're just going to do the exact same thing because I want to make my own materials so it looks like how I want it to look. And I'm going to call this tomato red. And we don't have a picture. We're just using a color. And here's something red, I think. Yeah, it looks red down here. Looks good to me. And then I can actually, again, we can just drag and drop these materials on anything we want, but I want it to be on the tomato there. I'm going to right click, create material, and make a tomato green for the stem. Color box. Being colorblind, I'm going to drag these little sliders back, and that way I know I'm in the green zone. And we'll go a little darker. Oop, this is not green. Yeah, it is. My eyes are deceiving me. There we go. And we'll see if we can drop it anywhere, but we want it right there. So this tomato that I just edited, I want to save that as a prefab to make sure all the tomatoes look the same. So inside of here, I'm going to create another folder and oops, just call this prefabs. In the very act of dropping something from the hierarchy, something that's in the scene, into the folder, into any folder, it doesn't matter where I drop it. This one just so happens to be called prefabs. But by dragging it down here, it says, oh, you're making a prefab. I want an original prefab. So there's my tomato. We're going to do the same thing with the cans here in a little bit. I now have a tomato sitting there. Isn't that lovely? And you'll notice it has that prefab icon now. It's got my custom colors on it. It has a mesh renderer, which means I can see it. However, it does not have any collision area. There's no collider on it. So we're going to add a sphere collider. The reason for that is a sphere collider is very efficient as far as calculations per frame. I actually have a little image here I want to show you on why we do this. The Kenny assets are what we call low poly, so they're more like this. But if you get something photorealistic, I mean, it'll have 500,000 triangles, and triangles are polys, right? So and you can do what's called decimation, where it reduces the amount of triangles. You know, it still looks pretty realistic here. Ooh, starting to look very Nintendo 64 here, and like Star Fox down here. But because they're low polys, we're going to be able to use a certain kind of collider I'll explain later. But in VR, you want to use fairly low poly. You know, you want to keep it under 1,000 triangles. For your objects, and all the Kenny ones are pretty low, which is great because we don't have to worry about the poly count. Now I could make it, let me show you the colliders. If I type in add component and type in collider, a box collider, this thing would act like it is a cube. So if I would throw it, it would like roll like a dice and then sit on one side or whatever, just like a dice would. And we could do what's called a mesh collider, which in VR is generally a bad idea unless you have low poly assets, like I just showed. And you can see the polys on here. So you know it's very low poly. A mesh collider is essentially, think of it like wrapping saran wrap around an object, and it is calculating a collision on every single one of those little triangles. Like if you're using a high poly count, imagine doing a mesh collider on this. Every frame, it's calculating the collisions for 500,000 triangles every frame. And that's why some games will lag because you have way too many polys. So I'm actually going to use a sphere collider because I want the tomatoes to roll really easily. So I could do a mesh collider, but I'm actually going to go with the sphere collider for now. And you can see the little sphere that's around it. That's how it's going to roll. So you'll notice a tomato when we throw, it's just going to roll and roll and roll. Um, but either the mesh or the sphere collider would work there. Oops, I need to go to the show notes. Um, so the physics material, yeah. So we added regular materials, which are like the picture that wraps around a 3D object. And now we're going to create what's called a physics material. And what that is how does it react when it bumps into something? Is it like a rock when it hits something? Or is it like one of those high bounce rubber bouncy balls that bounces all over the place? Is it high friction? Is it slippery and like a greased pig? Um, I guess out in the country we have greased pigs, right? Everybody in the country has one. I think that's what people think. So I'm going to actually put it in materials, even though it's a physics material. So somebody will probably yell at me for this, but I'm just going to right click and create physics material. And this is the icon. I'm going to call this tomato physics. You can see the settings here, the friction, in motion, static friction, how bouncy is it, and then you can like multiply these together to make it like super super bouncy. And I think I have some settings. Yes, right here, point 1, point 1, point 5. So let's do that. Point 1, tab, point 1, tab, point 5. There we go. Because you'll see what that looks like in a little bit. Um, let's finish the tomato and then we'll test it out. Um, so it will bump into something. However, it won't react to gravity. So if I pick it up and drop it, it'll just hang out in midair because we don't have what's called a rigid body on it. And I'm going to make it a massive one, which is like 1 kilogram. Sorry, not kilogram. Yeah, I don't know. One of something. I don't know. Um, so let's add that on there. Here's my tomato. I want to use my material, my physics material. So I'm going to drag that in there so it acts like that. Then the rigid body we don't have. So I'm going to start typing rigid. If you start using Unity more, rigid bodies are on everything that uses gravity. And I'm just going to leave it at a mass of 1. But I am going to change this collision detection to continuous. So it's less likely to like glitch through the floor if it's moving fast. It does a better job of detecting those collisions and it won't fall through stuff. Oddly enough, the plane down here has a mesh collider, which means the tomatoes are literally going to roll across the surface of the water, which uh, we could add some polish to this, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that right now. But we could add another layer that's below the water that would basically catch the stuff, like the bottom of the sea, basically, so that it's not falling infinitely when it falls into the water. But I think that is pretty good. Oh, the grab interactable. Yeah, we can't pick it up yet. We could play the game, but we can't. Our hand would go right through it. We can't pick it up yet. So I'm going to collapse that and that. And if you want to be able to pick up an object, there's only one script you need. XR grab interactable. I just type in grab in the add component. And again, we could have custom reticles, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Basically, it's going to, when you pick it up, it's going to follow your hand, is what all these things mean. Um, and if I test it right now, we have several things we've made, of course. We can teleport to our little spot here. Oh, my table's not even on the floor. Whoops. Well, we'll fix that. Oh, I'm going to hit the mic. Try not to smack the mic. But if I throw it, it does roll like a sphere, which I kind of like. But it's kind of hard to throw, especially if somebody's in a seated position. So I'm going to give them a little bit of oomph. When they throw it, it's actually going to, if I pull this out here, the throw velocity scale. If I set that at like 5, now I could like barely throw it and it'll like go, pew, it'll like jump out of my hand a little more. You can play with those numbers and see what you like best. But um, let's move our tomato and table down, shall we? I'm not sure what happened there. My V here. Good. I'll move my tomato with it so I don't have to move that again. There we go. I think we're good to duplicate our tomatoes. Let's make an empty, which is basically just a folder, really. Tomatoes. Put this one and drop it on that to make that the parent of it. And then I'm just going to hit Control D, slide it over. Let's move this one over a little too. Zoom in here. There's a good one. There's one. Need to give them some ammo, right? There we go. We got some tomatoes. Let's see what it looks like when we throw now with that throw velocity scale adjusted. There, our table's actually on the ground. That's great. Oh, I bumped the other ones. I'm gonna have to spread those out. But now, if I just lightly toss it, it it actually feels a little more realistic. You don't have to like whip it as hard, and especially dealing with students that don't always wear the little wrist straps, you don't want them trying to throw stuff really hard because monitors will break. Tell you what, let's just delete that one and spread these out. So when I pick them up, they don't bump into each other and go flying because they jump into the position of your hand. And while they're moving into that position, if it hits one of the other ones, they go flying. So we don't want to do that. All right. How we doing? Okay. Let's make a can of soup or something. I don't know. We're going to scale this down. Again, this came from the kenny.nl. There's my food, and I'm going to type in can. There's the can. And I'm going to make another material because I like customizing my colors, even though I can't see them all. Can matte, like material. I don't know. Let's go with this lovely orangish color. I think that's orange. And I'm going to drag it right on that little middle spot. So basically what I'm doing is I'm building my first can, and then I'm going to make that a prefab. Remember, by dragging that from the hierarchy into a folder, that'll make it a prefab. Um, the can is also going to have a little folder for all of those, but I think I did like 0.5, 0.8, 0.5. Yeah, something like that. And let's kind of set this up. Okay. Finish the rest of the can properties before we make the prefab. We need a rigid body, and it's going to be a pretty light object because when it gets hit, we want it to, go flying, basically. Um, but we need it to react to gravity. So we add a rigid body to our can, and there's going to be our 0.05. So it's nice and light, collision continuous, so that it doesn't fall through stuff too easily. Very nice. And then the mesh collider, again, we're doing low poly, so it's really okay. And then we're gonna make a physics material kind of slippery. Because I want when things to hit it, I don't want them to like just stick to the plank and be resistant to falling off. I want them to kind of slide around and basically makes it easier to knock them off. Because it's kind of hard to aim in VR when you're throwing things. So we're gonna make our mesh collider on here. Again, the collider is what's going to make it bonk into things or let things bonk into it. And mesh collider, which means it is looking at every single one of these surfaces and it's going to act as though that is the physical edge of that. We could also use, box colliders and things like that. Um, but now we're going to make that physics material to make it nice and bouncy, kind of slippery. How about that? And what we do, point twos and point three. Point two obviously is making it lower friction, and then the bounciness of point three. Let's go point five. Let's make it pretty bouncy. And if you multiply that, you're gonna get like super high bouncing cans and stuff. So you gotta be careful with that. Um, but let's take that in my prefabs folder and drag that down there. Make an original prefab. Wonderful. And we're going to let's create empty. Oops, I did that wrong. Cans. Got the child parent relationship messed up. There. Now I have a can. And now I'm just going to control D, duplicate that. Control D, control D, and this is where I'm going to try that V vertex snapping thing. I think that's on there. You'll know real quick if it's not, because it'll like glitch and go flying. Control D, Control D. Zoom in here with my V key vertex snapping. Oh, not too bad. Hey, we got a pyramid of cans. Move that over a little bit. So, test it out. Let's see how we're doing. Could be good, could be bad. I don't know. That's what you get with a live show. Oh, good. The cans are falling through the earth infinitely. Aha. So I'm going to select all the. Actually, if I just edit I'm just going to do it to all of them. My mesh collider needs to be convex on this. Otherwise, it does not detect the collision. Hey, well, the top one fell off already, but all right, let's teleport up there. I'm going to back away from my desk a little bit and hope I don't smack the mic. We'll just throw it like, hey, there we go. It's actually working. Yeah. See, it actually uses the size of the, yes, touchdown. And it's sitting on the water. It's a frozen lake. That's why we're not moving, is because the whole thing is frozen, right? Awesome. So it did actually work, except for the top can is falling off. Minor detail. Oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. Just the one. Get on there. There we go. Whew. So we have everything that I intended for us to have at this point, where we can. There's a fly. Got him. We can throw the tomatoes and we can knock cans off. I did say I was going to show you though how you could walk around the ship, and if I go to my ship here, collapse my renderer, I don't need that. Um, I'm going to actually add a mesh collider, which again, if you're not working with low polys, this is a horrible idea. Everything's going to start lagging. And literally what game designers have to do is if this was a higher poly model, they would have to add a whole bunch of little box colliders and add a custom box collider for that step and that step. And all the little shapes would all be custom box colliders, which makes the colliders low poly. The visuals may not be, but the colliders, that's the physics calculations, what's going to cause all that lag. So I did not do it. Mesh collider. There we go. Whew. And then we have to make it so that we can teleport to the ship. So we're just going to go teleportation area and teleportation provider. That's going to be the rig again, just like we did for the rug. And now just for fun, let's see if we can tour our ship now. If I can find my controllers. Where are you? There you are. So I can teleport there. There's my snap turn provider. I'm turning the little thumbstick. And now I can teleport anywhere. I didn't set the reticle, so oops, it doesn't show that I can teleport there. So I probably should add a custom reticle on there. And I'm sitting down, so I'm too short to steer the ship. But I can go up into the crow's nest, so that's fun. Hope you're not afraid of heights or anything, but oof. So there we go. I'm going to add that custom reticle just because it bothers me that I can't see the part of the ship that it doesn't indicate that you're actually there. So if I go to assets and type reticle, let's go with the square one on that. There we go. We have ourselves the first part of Carnival Cans, or Carnival Pirate Cans, I guess. The next time, in the next episode, we're going to add a button right here. So right now you only have 3 tomatoes, but you'll be able to point your controller at the button and click it, and it's going to spawn or instantiate, is the technical term, a new tomato right on our little table so that we have infinite ammo. And also we're going to make it so that we can keep score. There's 6 cans here, and we're going to make it so that when a can, basically when it goes below this Y position, so it means it fell off, it will give you a point. And once you have 6 points, you've clearly knocked them all off. So maybe we'll add a little confetti that shoots out of a cannon or something. I think you should be able to shoot the cannon anytime you want. We'll put a little Easter egg in here that you can click on the back here or something, and it like shoots out stuff. That'd be fun. So we did it. We made it. I know that's kind of fast, but you can always watch the recording, as I tell my students. But this is a lot of fun for me. I really appreciate those of you that showed up today, or if you're watching this on recording. This helps me build fun things that I can then show my students, and once they see things being built and doing, not just the tutorials, they're great tutorials on the Create with VR course. I love those. But then what do you do with it? And then also adding some coding to it. Several episodes from now, we're going to be doing a job training simulation. If I go up here, further up. Oh, also, very late, but better late than never. Thank you to my sponsors, Social Media Week Lima. If you're in marketing, you need to get to this conference. I know it's in Lima, and it seems like the middle of nowhere, but the people that are the best in the world at this, or at least in the U.S., they are there. And I'm going to be speaking there this summer, so that'll be fun. About creating VR for businesses to do job training, which is this episode. So these aren't actually numbered as episodes because Carnival Cans is going to be actually episode 3 also, because we're going to be adding the coding part to it with the user interface, the clickable button, and the scorekeeping for the cans getting knocked off. So we'll work through these. I don't want to go too much longer because we're going on 49 minutes already. So but the assemble machinery, there's so many cool things you can do with that. There's a lot of companies around the world that are doing job trainings in VR. Even if they can only train like 50% of a job, for instance, an HVAC company, they want their employees to know how to take out the correct screws, replace an air filter, take the old one out, put the new one in, that kind of thing. I'm building a project for Mr. Manhole, which, that's the name of the company. They specialize in manhole replacement equipment. You can Google it. It's really an awesome company. And I'm doing a job training simulation for them so that they can sell their product and educate customers and train them. So we might use that as an example or part of it anyways. So I don't see any other questions in the comment box, so we're going to call it a day. So thank you for coming, and this has been really fun. Thanks, everybody. Bye.